Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. I'm your host, Viz, and today we are honored to have as our guest actor, director, producer, writer, Kristina Klebe. Kristina, thank you so much for being here with us today. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited. I've been looking forward to talking to you for a very long time now. So let's just get started. According to what people look up on the internet regarding how you got started, your initial training was in theater. Was motion pictures in the beginning ever on your radar?
Definitely not. No.
At which
Um,
point did it get into like becoming a possibility for you?
I think probably when I realized I couldn't make a living as a theater actor. Um, no, I honestly, it probably came into my radar in college, when I minored in film actually, and I shot my first ever short that I wrote, directed, and acted in when I was in college. And I remember, I think we were shooting on 16 millimeter, yeah, like Super 16 or 16. We edited on a Steenbeck. I mean,
Wow.
I edited on a Steenbeck and I acted in it. And I remember thinking, I had no idea how to act on camera, and everything was way too big. Like everything that I was doing was way too big. But as a director, I knew what I wanted and I knew it sucked. Like I knew me, like Kristina as an actor sucked on film. And so I was like, okay, well, how do I change my performance to adjust to this format? And I think that's the first time that I ever understood or started to understand more about like film acting or, on camera acting. And it was a great learning lesson. And it was also, I think, what got me more excited about that,
And it
about
looks
acting.
and it looks like from then on in you really just fell in love with it, and that your career just followed in the path of motion pictures. Now, a lot of us got introduced to you, and of course, in Rob Zombie's 2007 Halloween as Linda. Uh, Looking back
Totally.
now, would you say that was sort of like your breakout role?
Yes, absolutely. And I feel very lucky. It was one of those things that happens to actors that they're like, you kind of, I mean, it was just very lucky. I don't even know, I feel I had just moved to LA, or I hadn't even decided to move there before I don't even remember. I auditioned for it, then I went back to New York, then I moved to LA, and literally like a couple weeks later I get a call that I booked Halloween, and I didn't even know it was Halloween. And I was actually on the fence about doing it because of the nudity scene.
Yeah.
And I called a couple of friends who knew a lot more in the business than I did at the time. And they really got mad at me and they said, I can't believe you're even thinking about turning this down. Like, and I said, yeah, but like I'm a theater actor and I'm like, highbrow, like I do Shakespeare and this is a horror movie. Like I was super obnoxious. Like it
Yeah.
was exactly what you would imagine somebody that like had, spent up until then practically doing theater, would say. But it was the luckiest thing in my career, and it was the best thing that could have happened in my career. And
I
so
mean, you played a character that from the original was played by PJ Souls, and she was iconic then, and you were iconic as Linda in the remake as well. So definitely a great choice in taking the role.
yeah, and I'm super like I was so ignorant and so naive at the time to
Now,
even
you have
think
played roles that span all different genres, but horror seems to be really prominent in your credits. Do you have a special love for horror, like from an early age, or was it something that developed as time went on?
it's definitely something that developed, which you could probably tell from the story I just told you. I really did grow up going mostly to shows, live theater, live music in New York City, and horror movies. The only horror movie I'd even watched until later on was Nightmare on Elm Street, and it literally gave me nightmares for months, and so I never watched another horror movie. But I always, when I did start watching more movies, gravitated more towards like human horror, like real
Yeah.
people horror. So like, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is a horror movie, in my
Hmm.
opinion. Yes, it's a drama, but or The Shining, or And so, yeah, it definitely grew though over the years. And I think now that I know so many people and all my good director friends are, big horror directors, and I, of course, watch their movies before any other movie that comes out. I've become much more versed in the horror genre than I am even in dramas and comedies for sure, because I never watch comedies. Why would I watch a comedy?
And I'm sure you've learned by now that horror fans are just very loyal, loving, supportive fans out there. Some of the best.
Yes.
Now,
They're the
one of
best.
the more recent films that you've done was Two Witches, directed by
Yeah.
Pierre Tsagarides. You co-wrote, helped write the script, and you played in, because it's sort of a segmented film,
Yes.
opposite of Rebecca Kennedy. First off, how did you get involved with Two Witches?
So I met Pierre at a party that Alter had. So my short film that I wrote, directed, edited, produced, because I usually always do everything, went is it you can see it on Alter. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm pitching my little short called As Human as Animal. And I met Pierre at a party that Alter had, and he told me he was trying to get a feature done. And then he pitched this short film to me. And the short film was the section that I'm in.
Yeah.
And what I ended up doing is he ended up putting three films together to make the feature. There's three shorts together. And I pretty much helped him write the second part that Rebecca and I are in.
Mm-hmm.
And I also cast Rebecca because I had cast a project previously that she had auditioned for, and I really loved her. And so when this came about, I called her and I said, would she be interested? The funny thing is, Pierre had wanted me to play her character, and I was in some weird mood. I don't know why I said no. I should have played that character. It's such a good character. But I was just not like, I think I had just played a demon and I Am Fear, and I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I don't want to play another demonish witch
Yeah.
character. I wanted to play like the innocent person for once. So I asked him if I could play the other character, and I brought in Rebecca to play. So I actually cast her in it.
I think it worked out for the best. Rebecca was
Yeah.
great in her role, and you were amazing in your role.
I absolutely, and I'm pretty, I have a good eye for casting. I love casting.
Yeah,
I
I
love,
mean,
love thinking about the actors I know and being like, oh, she'd be perfect or he'd be perfect. Like,
I have actor, director, producer on the screen, but literally, you have done everything in entertainment: casting director, writer. I mean, you really have dabbled in everything. Now, you've directed two short films. What are your thoughts when you hand over a script that you, let's say, you solely wrote to another director to do it for you? Do you feel comfortable, trust that he or she's gonna have that same interpretation as you?
that's such a good question. I'm actually dealing with this right now with a very good friend, Zach Parker, who directed me in Proxy. We're co-writing a script together, and he's directing it. But I pitched it to him to direct because I'm playing the lead in it, and I didn't want to
Yeah.
direct and play the lead. And I really want him to direct again because he's such a great director. And now I am like, of course, you go through it and you think, well, shoot, like the vision that I have, even though we're co-writing it, the vision I have for this movie, is that the vision that he's going to have as the director?
Yeah.
What's the end product going to look like? And it is nerve-wracking a little bit. I think for most writers, we like to direct our own material.
Yeah.
But obviously that's not always possible. So you kind of hope and pray.
It's all
Hope and
about
pray it turns out to be what you want.
exactly letting go and trusting. Tell us what makes independent films really special for you.
I think, what's so frustrating sometimes in Hollywood is it's like politics. It's the
Right.
bureaucracy. It's the freaking like the red tape everywhere, and it's like you have to go through this person to go through that person. Like this just happened to my boyfriend that he auditioned for an ultra low budget film, which actually this shouldn't even happen on an ultra low budget, but whatever. And he wanted to send in another take because he didn't like his audition. And so he contacted the director, and I guess the casting director got angry that he had contacted the director. It's all like it's
Yeah,
all ego.
yeah,
It's
egos. I
everything. Then
know.
again, we're all artists, so we all have egos, and we always have to, you always check your ego at the door,
Exactly.
because somebody else definitely has a better idea. You just have to know like how to listen, collaborate. That's what I love about indie films usually is it's a collaboration and it's teamwork, and you don't have to go through all the red tape and the kind of, you
Yeah,
know,
and the situation you just mentioned is very prevalent in major studios. Everything is done by committee. One
yeah.
committee gets passed down to another committee and on and on. Not as much in independent films, depending on the budget. If you're dealing in six figures, once you get into seven figures, it gets a little bit more dicier. But in independent films, I've always say innovation is it's it's bred by necessity. You only have a certain amount of money, and you got to
Mhm.
make it work. And I think that breeds some of the most creative work that we've seen on the screen. Uh, Changing
Absolutely.
topics a little bit, COVID changed the industry 3 years ago. Inevitably, it was going to happen, but COVID sort of rushed it. In your opinion, are independent films in a better or worse position now than they were 5 years ago before COVID?
Mm. This is going to be, in my opinion, it's worse because people are not buying anything.
Yeah,
And the amount that they're paying for movies is much less than they were paying 5, 6 years ago. So a movie that you made 5, 6 years ago for 200,000 or $300,000 might have been bought for 600
yeah,
or 500 or 400. But today, a movie that was made for 100 might only get an offer of 50.
yeah.
And it's very, very, it's there. The market is, I think, saturated right now. So you might be able to make a movie, which is great, um, for less money or whatever, but I'm not sure that you're going to make your money back. And if your goal is to, or to get it out into the world, like get it, onto a
Hmm.
good platform where, people will be able to watch it. So I think right now, like the economy in general is in a weird place. So people are wary to spend a lot of money on anything.
Yeah. And I totally agree. I own a production and distribution studio, and I see it with the stuff that I'm distributing. Yeah, people, they're, I mean, times are tough. People are very careful on what they're spending their money on. They're not spending it as much on movies and TV. And if you look at what's playing in the theaters, even the studios are really playing it safe. They're taking these past big name films and they're rebooting them or creating sequels. A good example is they're currently shooting a sequel to The Exorcist, and it's being directed by David Gordon Green. They're taking, they're not
Oh my
taking
God. He's
risks.
just got he's got now, like he's got what do they call
Halloween's,
it? Like he's the new genre baby, I
yeah,
guess. Or
yeah,
favorite,
yeah,
darling, I guess is the word I was looking for.
yeah, and
I love him, but yeah.
they're taking known names. They're not taking risks like they used to before. They're taking known names and dumping money into them, and those are the movies that are getting the biggest hype in theaters. There are a few independent films that are coming out in theaters here and there, but as you know,
Like
it's
Terrifier, right? Like Terrifier, but I think that that's a fluke, and I think they were very lucky. Not to say
yeah,
the movie doesn't deserve it. I mean, it totally. I actually haven't seen it, so I can't say whether it deserves it or not, in
yeah,
my opinion. But I do really like the people involved. I know them. I've met them. They're wonderful. So I'm so happy for them. But I think that's an absolute fluke. I don't think that that's because
no, yeah,
that movie better than another movie. I think they were great at their marketing. Marketing is so important. They had the clown, the terrifier. Everybody knows that if you can make a visual monster that creates buzz, but there have been other ones that have not gotten as much buzz. So it really is all everything coming together,
yeah.
and your marketing campaign.
Was really good. Damien Leon, who created the Terrifier movies, I mean, he tapped into something that was a real big interest with fans in Art the Clown. And the
Mhm.
first one did great. So when the second one came out, there was the first one, and all the fans that had picked up. So when the second one came out, all the people from the first one came out and supported the second one, and then it caught on with even more fans. But you're right,
Yeah.
that is a big exception to the rule, you know?
Yeah.
So as your career moves along, what do you want to focus on? Because like we said, you do a little bit of everything. Do you want to continue to do a lot of in front of the camera work, or do you want to start focusing more on directing, producing, and doing some more writing?
Yeah, so I mean, I wrote a feature called Gene Therapy, which I really am trying to get made, and I want to direct. And it's based on my true story of being diagnosed with BRCA2, which is a genetic
Yeah.
mutation that creates breast cancer and stuff. So it's a dark comedy. It's not a horror, and it's not like a dark drama. It's
Yeah.
just it has comedic. It's comedic and it's fun. It's kind of like an adventure story. So I really want to direct that, but that's one thing. And I definitely want to still act, but I want to do projects, and only projects where I'm working with either people that are very nice
Mm-hmm.
or kind, or have like, or something in the movie is like meaningful to me.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, like I just don't want to just work on a project as an actor to work on a project
Mm-hmm.
anymore, because I've also just, it's not always, when you're not around the right people, it's not
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
what you love to do anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I recently lost out a role, and I was really excited because it was going to be with a well-known actor. But then I found out who the director was, which I didn't know. And I was like, wow, what a blessing in disguise. Even
Yeah.
though it was great, it would have been great for my career,
Mm-hmm.
my reel. I knew I did not want to work with that director
Okay.
because
So
because of the stories that are very much out there in the world.
yeah.
To say who it is, but like, and I was like, I number one can't even believe this guy is still making movies, but um I knew that I would not have had a good time on that set.
Yeah. Sometimes things work out for the best.
Yeah.
You've attended some of the best schools in the country. You Dartmouth, NYU for your master's degree. For kids coming up now and wanting to get into the entertainment industry, I'm seeing and talking to them, and they want to conquer. They want to start at the top right away and conquer the world 100 steps at a time. When it came to the schooling, the education that you got, how much did it help you when you got into the real world?
I would say that Dartmouth did not help me at all. But no, here's what it did help. I mean, uh, it helped because it was such a great education, and I studied politics, I studied government, and I still got to do acting, and I minored in film. So I learned so much, and I learned how to write. I learned how to write, theses. I learned how to think. I learned how to critically think. And this is what I actually think is the most important thing that we're lacking in general in our education in this country, but probably in many countries, is how to critically think.
Yeah.
That means that, i.e., you don't believe everything you see on the internet, or
Yeah.
your research, and you don't just believe what everybody says, and you say, oh, interesting, and then you go do research and you critically think, and you're like, does this and this add up or not? And you do your own critical thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that we're even taught how to do that in school, or I as far as I know, that's not taught very much
No.
anymore. And maybe it never was taught as well as it should be. I don't know. But I think with the internet and how much information is out there, it's so important to be able to be your own critical thinker. And
Exactly. I,
and so I don't know, Dartmouth helped in because it was a great education, I guess, but it did not help in the business. Like, I don't even think I've ever worked with, like, I just auditioned for Jeff Wadlow. He went to Dartmouth. I actually knew him. We did theater together. Back in the day, I just auditioned for this Blumhouse movie. And I don't think that just because I know him, I'm going to get cast in it.
no.
Like, so I can't even get in touch with him. So I don't know. Like, I don't think, Mindy Kaling, who was in my class at Dartmouth, I've tried to contact her and be like, hey, Mindy, remember me? Like, any roles on any of your shows?
Yeah.
No, I would say it has definitely not helped. But I think NYU grad has been an invaluable resource, and in fact, right now I'm producing and writing this feature that we're shooting this summer. And I just sent out an email to our listserv, and I said I'm looking for a DP who knows how to shoot 16 millimeter. And I didn't even think I would get this many responses of such talented DPs. And I was just like, wow, like even if one of these works out,
Yeah.
it's just, you know, so it is a resource. And obviously, yeah, I
What?
mean,
Why
obviously,
are you? Just a question. Why are you shooting it in 16 millimeter?
good question.
Yeah. It's, I mean.
Uh, because Zach had acquired a 16 millimeter camera and before I approached him with this idea. And he was really dying to shoot something on it. And I actually I've shot on film. I started, as I told you, on
Hmm.
16 and edited on a Steenbeck, and I love film. We both really want to shoot a movie on film. However, there are some things that we do need to think about, and but we're shooting it on film, and we are excited because it's just we want to go back to this kind of like this old school style, and
Retro, vintage, and it's funny because that has been prevalent a lot recently in what in the way people are coming out, especially with independent films. They're not shot on 16 millimeter; they're shot on digital. But what they're doing is in post production, they're adding the vintage look, like it was shot in the 1980s with a camcorder, and they're
Mhm.
doing that on purpose. I'm not a big fan of that because I've lived through the 80s.
No, you can never make it look like
Yeah,
it. I think you either have to shoot on the original format or shoot it in, you know, in what we have
yeah.
today. You know, I don't know about these post filters. There is one way to do it. I think that's really makes it look like film, but I don't know.
If you're gonna really go all in, then go all in. Do what you're doing. Do it in 16 millimeter, and it has to be an SD. Don't put it on
Yeah.
a big HD screen. Now you've done a lot of voiceover work. In fact, you have a game coming out this year, a Texas Chainsaw game coming out this later on this year. Does doing voice acting require a different mindset for you as opposed to being on camera?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think I love it even more actually. I love voiceover acting and work because I built myself a booth over the pandemic. I wanted to make sure that the work I did sounded as good as possible from home. I'm not there now, but obviously, but I love it. Like I go into the booth and I just feel so free and liberated. Like I don't care what I look like. Most of the time, nobody's even on Zoom, so they don't know they're not watching me. They're
Yeah,
just listening to me, and I get to do all these voices and characters, and I freaking love it. I love
yeah.
voiceover work so much. I would love to be in an animation, like a recurring in an animation on a TV show or something, but.
Absolutely. Now, you and I are New Yorkers, born and raised New
Oh,
Yorkers.
great. Yeah. So,
Now, entertainment runs in your family. Uh, how did growing up in the city, having entertainment in your family, how did that impact you choosing your career path going way back, you know? And what kind of an impact did it have growing up?
yeah. So I think I definitely was impacted by, so my dad was friends with Marion Ramsey, who unfortunately passed away during the pandemic. She was in the Police Academy
Yeah,
movies. And so she would come over, she like held me as a baby. And I remember her so clearly being so funny and like being such an influence. I just looked up to her. And then my uncle as well was a well-known actor in Germany. And I remember we would go to restaurants with him and people would be like, "Oh my God, can I get your autograph?" And I just thought he was so cool. Like I
yeah,
didn't want to be somebody that people asked for my autograph, but I just looked up to him. And and I think that yeah, they influenced me just being around a lot of theater growing up. I also, I don't know, I just always had it in my bones almost.
yeah.
Like I wanted to be on stage. I always wanted to be on stage. Whenever like the school play was happening, I was like, I want to have the biggest part with the most lines. Like, you know, I mean, I loved
It's
being
in
on
your
stage.
blood. Yeah, it's in your blood.
So
Before I let you go, I have one final question. Every actor has roles that are special to them as they move along in their career. If you had to pick one or two, what are some of the special roles for you that you've played?
I mean, I couldn't not say Linda in Halloween because that was just such an iconic role and it was such a great shoot. And I feel it's going to be with me forever. And
Mm-hmm.
I love Halloween. I love Linda. But probably also the role that I just played in Brooklyn 45, which is my new movie
Yes.
out on Shudder this summer.
Yeah.
Uh, Hildy is a very meaningful character because I was able to play a German character in America in the 1940s who is suspected of being a Nazi and just because she has an accent.
Mm.
Um, and now, again, this was post World War II. So, of course, people were like, you Nazi, of
Yeah.
course, you horrible person. But she had moved to New York in the 1930s, and people are still calling her Nazi. And she's like, I don't have anything to do with this war. And I think just the idea that because even me growing up without an accent, I was called a Nazi if people once people found out that I was German or had German parents,
Yeah.
and I just felt very connected to that. And I always understood the anger against Germans, of course. I mean, what we did was an atrocity, or I shouldn't say we because I didn't have to do
No.
with it,
No.
but you have to know your history to not repeat history. And but it was still hard being called something that is so evil when as a child or as a young adult, when you had
Yeah.
nothing to do with it and your parents were not Nazis and even your grandparents were not Nazis. So, I mean, question because my grandparents they had to be a part of the
Yeah. I know.
Nazi
Yeah. I know.
party, but they were not they both died. One died on the front in Russia. They were just soldiers, they
Yeah.
weren't freaking,
They didn't have
SS
much of a
officers.
choice. So
So
Brooklyn 45. IMDb has it listed as already out. You said it's coming out this summer?
yeah, it's coming out. It was premiered at South by Southwest, and
Mm-hmm.
it's coming out this summer on Shudder. Yeah.
Awesome. Make sure to check that out, guys. Christina, thank you so much. I can't believe we ran almost to 30 minutes. It's been a
Oh, great! This
treat.
was so much. You had so many great questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And this has been a great interview. I want to thank you. I want to thank our audience, those of you who are tuning in live, and the majority of you who'll be watching this later on. Again, our guest, Kristina Klebe. Uh, a lot of you know her as Linda from Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2007. Christina, thank you. On behalf of Christina and myself, stay safe and stay walking. Bye, everybody.
Bye.